I'm back. Just finished day 2 of the Systems Modeling and Organizational Design course with Craig Larman here in New York. And wow, I was just finishing the day by talking about with some friends about how important it is to go back to first principles. So I've been at this stuff about 10 years, which seems like forever, but in the grand scheme of things is not, but enough that I should know what I'm talking about. And coming to this class, I thought I was going to come and learn how Craig teaches it. So I could actually come and maybe pick up some of his style and techniques and see some ways that I can get better at teaching this stuff as well. Instead, what I've learned is some of the assumptions I was making, some of the ways that I thought LeSS worked were incorrect. I've literally had knowledge drift from the last time I read the book, took a class, went through and modeled this stuff. And it reminded me how important it is to come back and refresh and really come in with a beginner's mind to so much of this so that you have a chance to really reset and see, have I been making logic errors as I've been building knowledge on top of knowledge? Do I need to go back and refresh my foundations? And I did. 2 mistakes I was making. The first was the assumption that when you move into LeSS, you have a product owner that is still there with the product. And then you divide into requirements areas, which, as we talked about today, is not great. It's just the least bad thing you can do to deal with the fact that when a product gets big, you have cognitive load on the product owner and the teams that they can't handle. So I was under the assumption that the product owner, even when you divide into these requirements areas, was still prioritizing, at least at a high level, kind of an epic-y level, this backlog. So they were still seeing the whole backlog of the product and making epic-y decisions about it. And then all of the area product owners were taking from those priorities and then figuring out how to fine-grain deliver on them. Whew, there's a whole pile of thinking mistakes in that. One of them was about what's called batch travel. So when you batch things up together, so the bigger your batch size, so in this case, an epic-y batch size, and you say, I want this thing, and this thing can be broken down into pieces, but this is the thing I want. And you prioritize it as that whole thing. What's going to happen is inside that whole is a mix of priorities. Some things have really high ROI, some things have low ROI, some things are completely unnecessary, some things are the most important thing right now. But because they're traveling together, they're going to carry the same priority, which is what would happen if the product owner was prioritizing that list. So everything would be ranked number 1, even if there's stuff in there that should be ranked number 7,992, it's traveling with the rest of the batch. And that is going to kill your adaptiveness and introduce opportunity costs, the very things we're trying to fix. And instead, what is supposed to happen is that the product owner in LeSS, their role is primarily to look at kind of the architecture of the product organization and figure out what requirements areas should come and go, what ones should grow and shrink, should we be moving stuff around, and really there to help the area product owners and support them in anything they need. The area product owners are acting as real product owners. They don't get their priorities from the product owner. They don't get cascading goals from them. The idea is that they are making fine-grained decisions, not these big epic-y batches, but literally line by line, this has this priority and this is what I want. Now, it's not ideal because you still have these slightly locally optimized groups, but if you're already working on these software products that when you look at the scope of them require hundreds or thousands of developers currently in your system to deliver value on, well, then you don't have a choice. You're already in a scaling situation. So this gives you a chance to manage it. Why that's important? I had been limiting the size of products. So when we look to say, okay, how big of a product could one product owner handle even in LeSS, I would give the answer of probably 8 to 10 product areas, the same number as of teams that an average product owner can handle. And that was because I assumed the product owner is still prioritizing stuff and they would still need to understand the whole and make sense of all that, and there'd be a lot of cognitive load. Oh, with this answer, what the product owner is doing is really organizing and architecting kind of the organizational design of the product in the requirements areas. That means your product can almost be infinitely big, which is important because in the groups that I work in, when you define our products like retail banking systems as a software product, That's humongous. And to think that a single product owner could handle it seemed nuts to me. Like, you'd probably have to subdivide, which is trade-offs. Every subdivision, though, is an extra hit. So if we have these like layers of products where you've got, our company, and then you've got a line of business, and then you've got these kind of subgroups within there, and then products, and then area products underneath that, and then teams maybe aligned underneath that. Every layer is another indirection. It's another list, which introduces less adaptiveness, which introduces more opportunity cost, which means you're going to have more dependencies and more handoffs and more delay and ever increasing costs. So it's hard to explain without the system model, without being at the wall, but it's something I want to remember, because that's really going to change the way that I'm thinking about introducing product definition and design. So I was crazy excited about that. The other thing that I was reminded of is that Scrum and LeSS, because LeSS is Scrum, are software frameworks meant for software systems. And when we're defining our products, we have to be very careful, because we get so excited about involving the business and having business side product owners that we don't forget that these are delivery frameworks meant for delivering software solutions, and all of the practices and mitigating controls are primarily designed around that. So any other situation we're putting that into is going to be an awkward fit. It also, for those of us that work in companies where software is not our primary customer-facing business product, puts us in a situation where we have to make some trade-off decisions or some organizational decisions about how we organize our technical products, these software products, versus how we organize our financial or business products. And what do? How do we tie the two together? So there's some more thinking to be done on that for how that, what implications that has for my work. But sorry, just looking down at my notes, because I do have a ton of them. The last thing I wanted to call out from today was this problem with false equivalency. So whenever we're at the model drawing these systems models, we introduce, I think I mentioned him yesterday, Igor, who is making very common thinking mistakes, but things that feel right, things that we all do, and then we're counteracting them with logic to see, okay, how does this actually impact the system? And one of the things that got brought up was we were talking about code ownership, and if we have code ownership, isn't it better for the teams to have their own like repo that they own, and then we'll have better quality? And we were talking about learning. Isn't it better for the teams to just focus on one or two items and learn them, rather than having to learn lots of items? And maybe they won't even work on those items. What's the point of them learning them? Or maybe these people have to skill up. So right now they're very single skill specialty people, and now they're going to have to learn some other skills in order to work on a team. How are we going to do that? And isn't all of that stuff a reason why we shouldn't have these large products, and we shouldn't have big scopes inside and breadth of these definitions? What we discovered was those arguments have a false equivalency, and what that means is saying that the cost of learning, or the cost of internal open source, where you actually open up and everyone can change your code, is the same as the cost of the adaptive and opportunity cost impacts of having very small products, very narrowly defined, and teams with private code ownership. So the reason we want large products is because we want adaptiveness is our primary goal. The reason why we want teams able to work on many different items is because we have adaptiveness as our goal. Because we want shared code ownership and internal open source is because we want adaptiveness as our goal, and the ability to reduce cycle time, handoffs, and delays. All of those things have massive implications to opportunity cost and ROI. Millions of dollars per year implications. The cost of learning, training, getting people comfortable with this, changing our structures so that we can open our code, automating. These are one-time transactional costs, and the size and scope of them is much smaller than the $1 million of opportunity. In my company, probably hundreds of millions of dollars of opportunity cost and waste that we're spending by not investing this little bit. So it's like saying, would you be willing to give me $100, even if it meant you couldn't go out to eat this week, because that was your going out to eat money? And then in 6 months, I will give you $100,000. Well, of course you would do that. But if you're a short-term thinker and a local systems optimizer, you might want to hold on to that $100 because it feels good to have it and you're worried about spending it. So there's so much here in modeling and when we're talking with people and so many mistakes that we make that I'm learning techniques and tools about how to counteract them. And once again, this vlog is all about me sharing with you the excited lessons I've learned, but I can't beam these lessons into your brain because that's just not how this works. You really have to go and discover this stuff at the wall and really learn these thinking techniques to understand systems and how this stuff fits together, because it is counterintuitive, because our guts are really good at locally optimizing and very bad at system optimizing. So let me know, once again, if there's anything from this that sparked something that you'd like me to dig deeper in. I've got a pile of notes. I'm so excited to finish day 3 tomorrow and let you know my overall take, but thanks again.